Hello and welcome to the Boardroom Buddies podcast. This is a series of podcasts that are aimed at business owners who have small or micro businesses. Each podcast is themed and I interview and ask questions of a number of subject matter experts who are also owners of small businesses. And I ask about their specialisms, simply to answer questions that are often in our heads, but we never actually ask or get the answer. So we're here this afternoon at the Washlands Statham Hill Burton-on-Trent, which is a lovely park area, and we're surrounded by birds. We've just been looking at some cygnets that have swum by, and we've got a duck about 10 feet away and a swan swimming towards us. Really beautiful area. Today I'm talking to Vicki Lovegrove of 73 Design, and the reason I'm talking to Vicki, because she's a graphic design specialist, is because over the years, lots of people, when I've been talking to them, they're just starting their businesses, and we start to talk about brand, and they say, "Well, I've got a logo, that's sorted." So I'm all done with brand, but actually, that is only just part of it. You have to forgive the sound of the sirens in the back.
It's usually so quiet down here.
Well, I suppose it proves we're outside. So, welcome, Vicki, and thank you for talking to me.
That's fine. Thank you very much for asking.
Yeah. So, Vicki, you're a graphic design specialist. So, when we're talking about brand, what does that actually mean?
A lot of people overuse the word brand, and I often get asked, "Oh, could you design me a brand?" And no, it's the short answer.
Right.
I can design a logo. I can design all the assets, all the.
What do you mean by that, assets?
Assets are things like maybe icons for your website, or leaflets, brochures, exhibition stands, illustrations. I can do everything that goes with your logo to create marketing materials. But that isn't a brand. That's your brand identity. And that's what I do with a lot of companies. I design their brand identity. So I may design the logo. Sometimes they come with a logo, but often if they come with a logo, I'm working with them to make sure everything's consistent across their brand identity. So they're using the same colours, they're using the right fonts, everything looks like it belongs together.
Right.
It's quite an art to getting that right.
Yeah.
But that's still not a brand. Brand is the backbone of your business. It is your values. It's what you're communicating to your potential customers.
Yeah.
And it's not it's an unfortunate word, really, because people think brand like a stamp on something. That's why people think logos are a brand.
Yes.
But it's not. In marketing, brand is about the essence of your company, what you stand for,
right,
what you want your customers to feel, and all of that. And you've got to know what that is before you go and get a logo designed. So
much more involved than just a logo then.
It is. Quite often if people come to me and they say, "Oh, I want a brand designing," and they haven't considered who their customer is, not like a customer avatar. They don't really know what they stand for yet, because they haven't really got going. And brands evolve as well.
Yeah.
You might be talking to one customer at one point in your business, and then you start talking to somebody else, and then the brand identity, the graphical part of it, often starts to evolve too. But it is misleading, because people within our industry, people will talk about logos and stuff. "Oh, I don't want a logo. I've got a logo," and but they don't understand it's all the thought that goes behind it. You've got to know what your business is about, and that is the brand.
So in terms of logo, then, does it really matter how it looks?
Yeah,
Okay.
it does. You should really try and not redesign your logo every couple of years. That's a thing to bear in mind. Because if you're spending time on developing a brand and getting people to understand who you are and what you stand for, if you keep changing the visuals too often, people get confused. And also, your logo underlines how professional you are.
Right.
It doesn't have to tell your story, like, most big logos that we know. Quite a lot of them are quite clever, but they're usually quite simple. If you, for example, make packing boxes, you don't show the whole packing box making process in your logo. You just allude to it and get across how professional you are within that logo. So it doesn't have to tell a story, but it does have to reflect who you are. Which is why it's a shame when people design their logos themselves, because as good as you can make it yourself, and as proud of it as you are, it's still telling the world that you have cut corners, and therefore where else are you cutting corners?
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and it's an unconscious thing. Some companies, they can muddle along for quite a while with a logo they've put together themselves, but the moment they try and move up into larger markets, they go up against bigger competitors, they're always going to look like the small relation, small poor relation as well. It's all there unconsciously.
So I was thinking then, because when you said about it matters how it looks, but also for a new startup business, it could be difficult because they're not yet established. They don't yet know what they stand for. So how does that affect them? What should they do?
Well, they should know what they stand for. If you're going into business, you should have thought about that.
Right. Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Often people say, "Oh, I don't do any marketing." Well, you do. Every moment you appear somewhere as a business, you are marketing. And if you can't get your logo right, it shows. Even if you just had a typographical name, then just keeping it consistent, making sure it's a good font, not like a really old-fashioned thing, not a font that you use in publishing. There's fonts for every occasion, and not all of them are suitable for logos. Even just picking a font and just typing your business name in it should have some consideration, because if it hasn't, it shows. So it has to be considered all the way along. I often get brought into companies when they've been managing for a while, and they've got to a 2-3 year period, and they realise they're just not stacking up against the competition, and then they go for a refresh or a rebrand, and redo the logo and everything that goes with it then. But that's a strategic move. If you were to keep changing your logo and tweaking it in the first 3 years, that's going to harm you, really. You have to have done something intentional right from the beginning, really. And I know people will say, "Oh, I've had my business for 20 odd years." That was 20 odd years ago. That's not now. And that's the difference. It's you were lucky.
Sounds like you need to get the foundation right. I guess
definitely. You look at any big company logo, they have been evolving it over the whole time they've been going. I mean, the classic one is like Coca-Cola and Pepsi, but they were probably made out of woodblock at one point. They're so old, but they kept evaluating it because they keep looking to their market, because they have a brand vision. They know who their market is, and they keep looking to their market and reflecting that into their brand identity. So that's the important thing. You've got to constantly have your customer in mind and keep up to date for them,
Yeah,
really.
yeah. But I do, when I'm talking to people, often hear, oh, I can go and use some software,
Mm.
and I can do my own.
Yeah.
Because there's lots of design software out there, isn't there?
At the moment, yeah, you've got Canva, which is quite popular because it's
Yes,
so
yeah,
cheap. It's a really
yeah.
good entry level one for graphic design. But
But what could go wrong?
what can go wrong is not just about it might look terrible and might not attract the right audience. What can go wrong in the case of software like Canva is if you use all the shapes and the fonts and all the bits of graphical bits that they supply in their software to create a logo, that logo belongs to them. It does not belong to you.
Oh, that's interesting.
Everything you create in Canva using their assets or their graphical bits belongs to them.
Mm.
You do not own your copyright to your logo. So you could grow your business, but you don't actually own your intellectual property. And should you go along for years with this logo and then you decide to go for investment or sell your business, you don't even own your logo. So that's a major cock up from the beginning, quite
Yeah.
frankly.
Yeah.
So those pieces of software are okay for doing things like social media posts. They are not okay for creating logos.
Right,
You
I
won't
see.
own
Okay.
it.
Yeah. So what about when it's a fairly young business and I mean you alluded there
Mm.
earlier to Coca-Cola and the fact that they're constantly looking at brand identity
Mm.
and stuff like that. So what about if your business is changing or changed? Because I know mine has,
Mm.
and I now provide services that are quite different to what I've done for quite a long time in the
Mm.
business. Um, so a few years ago I had the rebrand and all that kind of thing. Yes, it was designed. But what does that mean when you're developing your business and the business is changing? Should your imagery change? Should your logo change? Your brand?
Not
Maybe the font and
always.
things like that.
Not always, no. And this is why you should design a logo from the beginning that can be more general purpose within your business and isn't showing every bit of your business.
Right.
Because if you show all different bits of elements of your business in a literal way, then that does reduce your scope for growth
Right.
visually.
Okay.
It's better to have something which is
Mm.
not so well. It's just not so literal, really.
Okay. Yeah.
I get people come to me and say, "Oh yeah, I want this. I want this logo. I want it to have a road in because we're going on a journey, and we make car parts and all this stuff." And you think, "Well, are you always going to just make car parts?" No, no. Well, then we shouldn't be showing
Mm.
car parts in a logo because
Yeah.
you're going to be doing other stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but
Mm.
it does happen, and when it happens, find a designer that's going to be quite honest with you and say
Mm.
whether you can keep using it or maybe just tweak it. You can just tweak logos. I mean, all the big logos in the world have been tweaked every now and again,
Yeah.
but they don't do it every year.
No.
It's a massive expense for them to do it, so they don't.
Yeah.
And that's another reason not to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But and you mentioned earlier somebody might not want a logo. They might just want to use a name, for instance, and the font's important. So, but do they still need then to bother with a design or brand? Think about brand?
Yes, I do. Yeah, because colour's important. Your fonts are important.
Okay.
Colour's very important.
Yeah.
It really does depend on what market you're in, what markets you sell to, what even down it can go down to the country you're selling into as well. You've got to be careful with colour. Your audience may not like a particular colour, so if you're selling to a really masculine market, using a baby pink and a powder blue,
I can see that.
it
Yeah.
might jar,
Mm.
but then it could also be a differential
Yeah.
point for your market. if you've got a disruptive product, you might be able to do that. I have worked with a truck company before who insisted on using this baby pink, and we did include it, but they were known for it, so they'd done it years before, so we couldn't lose it at that point because it had become synonymous with them.
Right.
So
right.
Everything has to be considered.
Yeah.
And this is why it's quite hard for people to understand, because we do it so naturally and well, it should look effortless.
Yeah.
But we do consider everything.
Right. Okay. And what about if you're, I suppose, identifying with perhaps a larger brand image? I'm thinking, maybe the M&S green, for instance. Are you allowed to use those same sorts of colours?
You are. Cadbury have trademarked their purple.
Oh, yeah.
But only in respect of chocolate.
Right.
So they couldn't. They did try to trademark it in. We don't want anybody in the world to use this Pantone purple because that is a Cadbury purple, and that's ridiculous.
I see.
But they have trademarked it in that you can't use it in regards to milk chocolate.
Okay.
But you could use a slightly different shade of purple now.
Right.
With your milk chocolate, because they have gone down the route of saying it's this particular shade of purple. So, if you wanted to use a lighter shade of purple for your milk chocolate, you could.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
You probably wouldn't want. You probably wouldn't.
No, I suppose you wouldn't. But I'm just thinking that if you're trying to create a particular persona, and you want it to emanate quality, then you might want to copy the colours of a very successful brand, for instance.
Yeah.
And are you allowed to do that?
Not in the case of Cadbury. No, I think others have tried it as well. But they can only get round. I think they did it, and I've got a feeling it got overturned as well.
Oh, right. Okay.
So I can't remember all the detail about it. Look it up. one worth googling. But they did, and it only got. I'm pretty sure it only got to be like milk chocolate.
Okay. All right. That's been really interesting. Thank you. Yeah. And if you're listening to this and you found it interesting, that's great. If you want to get in touch with Vicki, so Vicki, what's your email address and how can we get in touch with you?
Our website is 70-3.co.uk, all in words. But if you Google Vicki Lovegrove, I'm very easily found, and I'm on LinkedIn.
Brilliant. Okay. Thanks again. That's been really interesting.
That's okay.
Lovely.
Love to see you.
Yeah, you. I do hope that you've enjoyed this episode of the Boardroom Buddies podcast. Do subscribe for more podcasts, and it would be lovely if you shared it on your favourite podcast platform. If you have any questions or you would like to talk any more on the topic, then do connect with me on LinkedIn or email me on jax, that's JAX, @jackiecasey.consulting. And thanks for listening.